I agree with the certainty that the Islamic economic model offers a solution, a more pragmatic solution than today's conventional economic model. Whether Islamic banks apply the Islamic economic model consistently and effectively is a matter of practicality, but the tools and opportunities exist for them to provide solutions which the conventional banks no longer are able to do. Yes, we enjoyed a great deal of support from both the government and the FSA, Bank of England, Treasury, tax authorities in establishing Gathouse Bank. There's a clear enthusiasm to level the playing field for all forms of finance to enable social equality, the level playing field for economic as well as social means informs our both or all the government parties. So not just the Labour Party, but the Conservative Party has been instrumental in enabling this. So as entirely foreign-owned but British bank, Gathouse Bank really didn't experience any obstacles apart from the ones related to the definition of deposits. Gathouse Bank has a full British banking authorisations and able to do anything that any bank can do. Barclays or NatWest has those permissions. The area of controversy surrounds the definition of the deposits that we're allowed to take and the methodology with which we deal with that particular area. But everything else has been it's been very easy to work with the authorities here, and so that's given us a strong footing for the future. What I do want to see is more cooperation between the Islamic banks in the UK to bring depth and substance to the market, but we certainly don't have any obstacles put in our place through the authorities. Yes, certainly when we envisaged the bank, it had a much larger component of capital market activity, Sukuk. We envisaged doing developing the UK corporate Sukuk market based on more fundamental principles of asset-backed and asset-based business, and to participate in more corporate-led business globally. In fact, our team was active everywhere from Korea to Jordan, from the United Kingdom to America, in developing leads and opportunities for a proper corporate Sukuk market. However, the crisis blew away many of those opportunities. We saw the Sukuk market retrench. We saw the issues surrounding the problems with not just the conventional market, but also the discovery by Justice Taki that many of the Sukuk products were not up to AOFI standards, as he described it at that time. So the market took a nasty downturn and recovered really only through sovereign Sukuk. Apart from one or two, the market recovery has been primarily sovereign Sukuk, which wasn't in our original business plan. So the bank reinvented its position more as a merchant bank. We still have a plan to intermediate the quasi-governmental and corporate sector in true asset-backed Sukuks, but that that ambition was set back many years, and we repositioned ourselves. Luckily, of course, like all Islamic banks, we didn't have the terrible legacies of the debt crisis. We didn't have the legacies of failed American debt on our books, similarly with loans. So our ability to ride out the crisis, as with many Islamic banks, is much stronger, and we've emerged through the other side with a great deal more capital than when we started, with a strong team of people and with a real optimism for the coming years, and provided the conventional sector doesn't blow itself up completely and we don't end up with the Armageddon options that the press seem to want to encourage us to believe are coming. If we don't have that, then we will certainly be in amongst the forefront of the Islamic banks, taking advantage of the development of the Islamic financial system, as the conventional system is shown to be failing in so many ways. Well, first of all, we apply all of the usual best practice in a market like real estate. Many of the biggest competitors have actually failed quite badly in real estate during this period. They have fallen into the trap of over-leveraging their transactions so that they can't afford the debts they've taken on those. They become short-termist in their approach, particularly to the debt and to the fees that they charge. So you might find a transaction leveraged at the height of the market 100%, and then again later in this last phase 80–70%. We've always applied low leverage. We've always taken a participation in any transaction alongside our investors with our own bank capital. So we always co-invest. We have a very conservative leverage profile, and we treat real estate as it should be, as a long-term investment, but we treat it as each transaction individually. So we don't treat real estate as a market. We don't buy and sell movements in the market. We buy and sell and invest in individual properties. We have some good properties in bad streets and good properties in difficult markets, but the tenants are good, the underlying real estate is good. So we apply fundamental principles. We employ surveyors, we employ people to manage our properties, and we take a fundamental view to where the value is in the properties, which is in their ability to raise rents. We're very concerned about the usufruct of the real estate that we deal with, and concerned less about trading it in a market. We are a Sharia compliant Islamic bank, and to be able to apply those principles all the way through our business has always been absolutely fundamental to the establishment of the bank. So it doesn't matter if we're discussing the setting up of a contract for our water coolers, or whether we're talking about a sophisticated sukuk in some overseas market. All of these contracts, all of these policies have to be applied to the organisation, and I can't see it's possible to do that with long distance relationships with scholars who are often rarely available. When we set up the bank, and it was a demand of the other scholars that we have British scholars on board, because they didn't want to be opining on our transactions or managing or on the management of our business from thousands of miles away, with occasional visits. The United Kingdom is a long way from where many of the scholars would be domiciled. So we employ British scholars, and we have in-house to maintain our standards, because without it we simply won't. We will drift away, and we can't possibly do that at thousands of miles of distance. The business is complex, and every day things change. The lawyers have a point, or the accountants have a point, and if we apply our scholars, we apply to our scholars offshore, external board, and we wait a few days or a week or 2 weeks for an answer, then either the business is gone or it's changed, and we're applying the wrong answer to the wrong question, and we end up making mistakes. So having our scholars right in-house is critical. Mufti Mohammed Nur al-Shikta, who's our in-house scholar, was also performed a very similar function at Dubai Islamic Bank for many years. And he's very familiar with the workings of an internal Sharia advisory program. Shahid, our auditor, has also recently achieved a number of examination successes in this field, particularly related to the audit process, and we feel very well protected by this. It's the same as with a risk department. Why would you operate without a risk department? They're there to protect you. Why would I want to operate without an internal scholarly capability? They're there to protect me and the bank and the shareholders from mistakes. So it's for me a big advantage, and having them on board it's not a cost saving by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly makes us more responsive in all of our business, and that makes it easier for us to do business across the board. Well, the major obstacles are unfair competition, and that relates to a complex blend of scale and tax and regulatory aspects of the business we operate in. So where an organisation, where a conventional organisation can hide behind or protect its business or appear to, with instruments which are denied to the Islamic banks, and where they can avoid taxation, or where they can characterise their instruments in particular ways, that gives them advantages which the Islamic banks can't compete with. However, I believe that competition is neither fair nor is it healthy. I think that the kind of products that it's led to, the most famous probably being the American subprime mortgage products, which were so obviously unhealthy for not just the people who bought them, but for everybody, including the people who traded them on. Everybody was affected by that. The Islamic banks, don't forget, were competing against those kind of products when they were hot in the market, and it's difficult to do that. They were competing against all of the derivative products that we see as being unacceptable now. The collateralized debt obligations and similar, which have been so big a part of the development of conventional markets, denied to Islamic banks, but they're also seen to be unhealthy products now in retrospect. So whilst the Islamic banks have stuck to their principles in most areas, the conventional banks have invented and reinvented a whole range of unhealthy products which have given them unfair competitive advantage and notional profitability, which is hard to match. So as long as we have to compete with those conventional banks who even stray into the Islamic space and even develop sukuk products in the capital markets, as noted by Justice Taqi Usmani and in some of the Sukuk products. They even stray into the Islamic market and bring that kind of unfair practice into Islamic finance through the back door. So not only do we have to make the Islamic products compete with these unhealthy conventional products, but we also then have to compete with the conventional banks to develop the Islamic products which are healthy. So that's where the major obstacles have been over the last 30 years. And we've struggled when that kind of competition has been compounded by the development of laws and regulations and taxes which have supported the development of these unhealthy products and penalised the development of the compliant trading or capital-based products that Islamic finance relies on. But despite all of those disadvantages, Islamic finance has prevailed, and it's grown at a faster rate. And so despite all of the obstacles thrown in its path, it has competed and it has grown and it has developed more interest every year amongst governments, amongst politicians, amongst economists than ever before. So it proves that it must be based on a particularly strong economic model if it can take on that kind of competition and can still be in the game. Well, realism. First of all, I think that before embarking on a career in that sector, you have to look at where the employment prospects are going to be at the end of it. And not to forget that Islamic finance and financial services have opportunities in law, they have opportunities in accounting, they have opportunities in regulation, they have opportunities amongst supervisors, they have opportunities right across the board from IT to the sharp end of the investment modelling. They have everything from the PR to the human resources. So whilst there may be comparatively few jobs in Islamic finance compared to conventional banking, nevertheless there's a much wider spread of employment opportunities available, and people should look to their strengths and should train to maximise those. Also, people doesn't matter what business you're in, whether you're banking or whether you're in printing or whether you're in building things. These days people prefer people with experience. So when you're making a shift from your basic educational experience and your training to the next levels, including moving up to masters or other areas, should carry with you some practical experience. People, the more qualifications you get without having a practical experience of some form or another to underpin what you're doing, the less attractive you'll become to an employer. So if you've managed to accrue an enormous amount of educational experience up to PhD level and above, but have never worked in any practical sense in the industry, you're much less likely to get a job than somebody who has shown, who's got through the first phase of learning about Islamic finance, can demonstrate that, and then has put some practical miles in on the ground doing deals. Because Islamic finance is a very practical business. It is transactional, it is about engaging with the real economy, and so to prosper in it you must understand and engage with the real economy. You must have a business business sense to add to your academic sense. That's my opinion. It's a very interesting question, one which often exercises me, because it people tend by that question to mean how much of the Islamic economic model is monetized, i.e. how much of it is in money in the bank, how much is counted into banks. So you may find that a gentleman or a lady runs a business in accordance, and all their family affairs in accordance with their Sharia principles. They may do a vast amount of their halal, they may run a halal industry, vastly, or majority of which would be done in an acceptable fashion, but they might find difficulty in matching all of their financial needs to their in a banking sense. So they may be operating their basic banking through a conventional system, and maybe not accepting the interest or whatever it may be that they're doing to cleanse their activity, because they don't have access to an Islamic bank where they are. So we can count the growth of Islamic banking by measuring the amount of money in banks, and that is moving towards a $4 trillion industry. But that includes all of the sukuk-related activity and double counts money, just in the way the conventional system does. But on a like-for-like. So we have about less than 2% of the world's counted money in bank business is done in an Islamic fashion. But that ignores the amount of non-bank financial business that's done in the takaful industry, in the personal business dealings, in the halal industries. The Islamic economic system is much larger than that which is monetized in the banking system.